Andy's previous car was the equally sensational Alfa Ferrari, which was very loosely based on an Alfa Romeo. Certainly at the time, this car was as exciting and revolutionary as the Peugeot is now, and people like me would travel miles merely to hear the engine noise. And Andy certainly drove it with aggression, as our cameraman found out when he was hiding in the forest one day, right on Andy's line. But time was right for a change, and in 1997, Andy debuted his new car, the Peugeot 306 6R4. So called because it had a Metro 6R4 engine in the back. With its bodywork taken from an ice racing car, and its ridiculous rear wing taken from a Lotus Elise GT Racer, this car was an immediate sensation, taking 6 fastest stage times on the trot on its very first event. Andy Burton and co-driver Rob Morgan certainly had a good idea of what they needed to do in the car though.
So the plan of attack this afternoon basically is go like hell.
Yeah, good idea, Rob.
Technically, the car is a real mishmash of parts. Part Peugeot, part Ford, part Impreza. And sadly, it looks like in the future, innovative and technically brilliant cars like this will be banned from British motorsport, mainly because the governing body of motorsport, the MSA, is not too keen on having cars not built by manufacturers, or specials as it were, driving on the stages. With a new rear wing fitted, the car still proves as quick as ever. But after repeated cam belt failures, the decision was taken to replace a Metro engine with a 2.5 V6 Ford Cosworth unit from a German touring car. And boy does the car shift now. And it sounds absolutely fantastic. Over the past 5 or 6 years, the car has generally either won the rallies it has entered or broken down. But in the meantime, Andy and the car have won the 2003 BTRDA Rally Championship against cars built by major manufacturers, and it also won the Somerset Rally 6 times. Rumours are that Andy now has a new car being built, and let's just hope that it's as good as this one. Let's just finish this short feature by joining Andy Burton on board. The Peugeot Cosworth. Let's hope we continue to see it on the stages. But just in case we don't, let's have a bit of a treat with some onboard action from Andy Burton's mega car. The Lancia Stratos was an extraordinary rally car, being really more racing than rally car, but its appearance in the 70s excited crowds like no other car. It was very short and therefore extremely twitchy, and on tarmac there was no match for it. But that wasn't why it appealed to the crowds. They just loved the way that it looked and sounded, with its 2.5 litre Ferrari engine, straight out of a Dino, but tuned to give about 270 horsepower, making it impossible to confuse it with any other car. Even when you couldn't see it, you could hear it coming, and then you just waited for it to appear. Remarkably though, it was just as successful on rough roads. Its design meaning that the engineers were able to fit dampers and springs with enough travel to soak up whatever the World's Rally stages threw at it. It was so successful that Lancia took the World Manufacturers' Championship in 1974, 75 and 76.
Vortigern Stratos looking and sounding like a potential winner.
But it wasn't always easy to drive, as Sandro Munari was finding out on the 1975 RAC Rally.
And perhaps not quite so impressive, Sandro Munari in the second works Lancia Stratos. Munari is a past Monte Carlo rally winner for Lancia, and the Stratos is one of the fastest rally cars in the field. But he just was not at home on this stage. There's Munari's Stratos, but what about his teammate Vortigern? Vortigern's battered Stratos, or what's left of it. He completes the stage, but he's lost any chance of success.
And Bjorn Vortigern was finding out that the easily removable one-piece rear bodywork was perhaps too easy to remove. It's perhaps no surprise that this car made it into our top 10 at number 5, but let's just take a quick look at a couple of Lancias that didn't make it. The most successful Lancia to miss out was the Delta Integrale. In fact, this is the most successful car in the history of world rallying, having won the World Championship for 6 years on the trot, having won more individual rallies than any other car, and in one season winning all 12 of the championship events. What made this so remarkable is that the car itself looked so understated, and yet following the banning of the Group B supercars, it was almost a perfect rally vehicle, with its combination of four-wheel drive, almost 300 horsepower from its turbocharged 2-litre engine, and superb handling, meaning that nothing could get near it for years. In many respects, this should be the best rally car of all time, but it didn't even make our top 10. And then there's a Lancia 037, the last two-wheel drive car to win the World Championship back in 1983. This again was a 2-litre car, but this time with a supercharged engine pushing out over 300 horsepower. This would have been the car to beat for many years, had four-wheel drive not come onto the scene, because the car had everything and was not only completely dominant on tarmac, but actually managed to win tough gravel events like the Acropolis as well.
The incredible Lancia Stratos there. Join us after the break to find out what's made it numbers 4 to 2. Welcome back. Let's get straight on with the action with our countdown to the world's best ever rally car. And a very popular little beast has made it to number 4.
Making its World Rally debut in 1984, the Peugeot 205 T16 was the car that quickly took away the dominance of the Audi Quattro. And whereas the Quattro was old German brute force and ignorance, the Peugeot was small, subtle and superb. When the Peugeot first appeared, the Quattro was well into its stride. But this car was more than a match for it, and even the Audi Quattro Sport wasn't good enough to take it on in a head-to-head battle. For a while, the 205 T16 was definitely the car to beat because it had everything. Good power, good dimensions and great handling. In fact, it had great power with 340 horsepower and a mid-engine layout giving it the agility that the Quattro didn't have. The car's first victory was the Thousand Lakes Rally at the hands of Ari Vatanen in 1984. And he then went on to win the next 5 events before he was beaten again, and that was only by his teammate Timo Salonen. He then went on to win several more events in the year, emerging as a 1985 Drivers' World Champion, while Peugeot took the Manufacturers' Championship. Like all truly great cars, this one could win on any surface. And in one 12-month spell, the car took victory on the rough roads of the Acropolis and Argentinian rallies, the snowy roads of Monte Carlo and Sweden, and the quagmire-like conditions that always accompany the RAC rally. Although that didn't mean that people still didn't make mistakes in the car. And it wasn't without its success in the UK either, with Michael Sundstrom nearly winning the British Championship in his in 1986. The Metro 6R4 was the UK's very own pocket rocket rally supercar. And because we in the UK seem to like noisy cars, it was also one of the most popular. The sound that it made being unlike any of the other Group B cars. This was because it was the only Group B car not to run with a turbocharger. The designer, Patrick Head of Williams Grand Prix, being told by Austin Rover Group to use a modified version of the Rover V8 engine. Or they had to chop a couple of cylinders off to make it into a V6.